My name is Sheila Smith. I'm 31 years old. At my son's baptism, 32 guests watching from the pews of St. Augustine's, Father Michael mid-blessing over the baptismal font. My own mother stood up from the front row, walked to the lectern, and took the microphone from the deacon's hand. Her voice rang through the sanctuary. I want everyone here to know my daughter is not fit to be a mother. The holy water hadn't even touched Isaac's forehead yet. My husband's hand found mine. I didn't cry. I didn't defend myself. Because I knew something my mother didn't. 4 months earlier, I'd asked for help for postpartum depression. Voluntarily, responsibly, exactly the way a good mother should. My mother had weaponized that vulnerability, filed false reports, and tried to destroy my reputation so she could take my son. But Nathan, my husband, a licensed psychologist, had spent 3 months building an ironclad file. And when he leaned close to her ear and whispered one sentence, her knees gave out right there in the sanctuary. Before I tell you what he said, take a second to like this video, subscribe if you believe family betrayal cuts the deepest, and tell me in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is where you are right now. Because that was the moment my mother's perfect lie shattered. But to understand why those words had the power to destroy her, I need to take you back to the beginning. It was May 17th, 2025, a Saturday. Nathan and I invited family over for brunch to announce my pregnancy. I was 16 weeks along, finally far enough to feel safe sharing the news. We'd waited, been careful, wanted everything perfect. My mother arrived early. She always did. Carolyn Preston, 59 years old, retired social worker, former CPS supervisor. 30 years protecting children, she'd tell anyone who'd listen. She walked into our house on Providence Road in Myers Park without knocking, carrying a bag I hadn't asked her to bring. Oh, sweetheart, I'm so happy. She hugged me too long, too tight. This time, I'll make sure you have all the support you need. I know how overwhelming first-time motherhood can be. This time, the phrase hung in the air. This was my first pregnancy. There was no last time. Nathan caught it too. I felt his hand on my back, subtle, grounding. But I smiled. I thanked her. Because that's what you do with mothers like mine. You accept the help you didn't ask for and pretend not to notice the implication that you'll fail without it. The brunch was lovely. 8 people, mimosas, congratulations. My mother sat at the head of our table. We hadn't invited her to sit there, she just did, and told everyone how excited she was to be really involved this time. She'd made a list, she said, things I'd need, things I wouldn't think of. She'd be there every step. Oh. After everyone left, I found her in the nursery. The door to the second bedroom upstairs was open. She was inside, measuring the windows. Just making notes, she said. You'll want blackout curtains. And the crib should go here, not where you were thinking. Better feng shui for the baby. I hadn't told her where I was thinking of putting the crib. Over the next 8 weeks, she showed up 6 times without calling first. Each time she brought something. Books about infant care with 23 sticky notes marking important sections. A pregnancy journal with her name already written inside the cover as Grandma's Memories. A organizational system for the nursery closet that she installed while I was at work. One afternoon in late June, I came home and found her rearranging our medicine cabinet in the upstairs bathroom. Just making sure you have everything safe for the baby, she said, moving my prescription bottles to a higher shelf. You'd be surprised how many accidents happen. I should have said something then. I should have set a boundary. But she was my mother, and she seemed so helpful, so concerned. It was Nathan who saw it first. Wednesday night, July 23rd. We were in the living room. He was reading one of the parenting books my mother had brought over. I watched his expression change as he turned the pages. He held it up to show me. 23 annotations in her handwriting. Blue pen, careful notes in the margins. But it wasn't baby advice. It was warnings. First-time mothers often don't recognize their own limitations. Watch for signs of overwhelm. Postpartum depression risk factors include: Sheila, I need you to hear me as your husband, not as a therapist, Nathan said. His voice was calm, but his eyes were serious. Your mother is documenting. That notebook she carries, it's not for baby shopping, it's a record. I wanted to argue. I wanted to say he was overreacting. But I'd seen the notebook too. A small navy blue journal she kept in her purse. I'd glimpsed it once when she was writing in it at our kitchen table. I'd thought it was a shopping list. It wasn't. The pattern continued. In August, I started hearing things. A friend from church, Jessica Palmer, called me one evening after Sunday coffee hour. Hey, I don't want to stir anything up, Jessica said carefully. But your mom mentioned at coffee hour that you've been stressed and she's worried about how you'll handle the baby. I just wanted you to know what she's saying. My mother wasn't just preparing to help me. She was preparing to replace me. She was building a narrative in which I would fail, and she would have to step in. And she was doing it publicly, to people who would later be called as witnesses. I didn't know that yet. Not fully. But I felt it. A cold dread that settled in my chest and wouldn't leave. Isaac was born on September 2nd, 2025, at 6:32 in the morning. 7 pounds, 2 ounces, 20 inches long. Perfect. Labor lasted 14 hours. I'd wanted it to be just Nathan and me in the delivery room. Private, intimate. But my mother showed up at Carolina's medical center the moment I checked in. She must have been watching our phones, tracking us somehow. She tried to come into the delivery room. Nathan, I'm her mother, she said through the door of room 514. I've seen childbirth before. Let me support her. Carolyn, Sheila wants privacy, Nathan said, firm but polite. We'll update you when he's here. She waited outside for 18 hours. When the nurse brought Isaac to me for the first time, I looked through the glass window in the door. My mother was there, holding up her phone, taking pictures. She hadn't asked permission. The first 2 weeks home were a blur. Feedings every 2 hours. Diapers. Exhaustion that felt like drowning. And my mother, every single day. She'd show up at 7 in the morning. She had a spare key I'd given her for emergencies, with casseroles and advice I hadn't asked for. Honey, you're holding him too tense. Here, let me show you. A mother's touch should be natural. Don't worry, you'll learn. She stayed for hours, 3, 4, 5 hours at a time, always watching, always correcting, always writing in that navy blue notebook. 12 visits in the first 6 weeks. Nathan tried to set boundaries, but she had a way of making him feel cruel for asking her to leave. I just want to help my daughter. Is that so wrong? 3 weeks in, I found the notebook on our kitchen table. She'd left it there while she was in the bathroom. I shouldn't have looked. But I did. September 15th. Sheila forgot to burp Isaac after 2 p.m. feeding. September 18th. Looked exhausted, didn't shower. September 22nd. Snapped at me when I suggested earlier bedtime. Possible detachment? 32 pages, blue pen. Every perceived mistake, every moment of normal exhaustion, documented like evidence in a case. I took photos of 3 pages. I didn't know why yet. Just instinct. Something was very wrong. By week 6, I was unraveling, not sleeping, barely eating. And the thoughts started. Intrusive thoughts. Horrible, terrifying images that would flash through my mind. What if I dropped him on the stairs? What if I forgot him in the car? What if? I knew they weren't real desires. I knew they were symptoms of something. But they scared me so badly I couldn't breathe. And I didn't tell anyone. Because I could hear my mother's voice in my head. Some mothers just aren't ready. Some mothers need help. If I admitted I was struggling, I'd prove her right. Sunday night, October 26th, 2025. It was 7:45 p.m. My mother had been over that afternoon, criticizing the way I'd dressed Isaac for church. We hadn't gone. I'd been too tired. She'd made sure I knew that was a mistake. I was giving Isaac a bath. He was splashing, happy. And then an intrusive thought hit me so hard I gasped. An image so awful I can't even say it out loud. I set him down in the bath immediately, stepped back. My hands were shaking. I called for Nathan. "I need you to come home right now." My voice didn't sound like mine. "I'm not safe. I mean, Isaac is safe, but I'm having thoughts and I'm scared." He was at the grocery store. He made it home in 12 minutes. He found me sitting on the hallway floor outside the bathroom. Isaac was in his crib, dry, changed, safe. I was just sitting there, shaking. Nathan knelt beside me, took my hands. "Thank you for calling me. This is exactly what a good mother does." I started crying then. Not from shame, from relief. Because for the first time in 6 weeks, someone had told me that asking for help wasn't failure. At 9:15 p.m., Nathan helped me call the National Maternal Mental Health Hotline. The number is 1-833-852-6262. I'll never forget it. A woman named Ann Winters answered. I told her everything. The intrusive thoughts, the fear, the exhaustion, the feeling like I was losing my mind. "Sheila, I want you to hear me clearly," Ann said. Her voice was steady, warm, professional. "Having intrusive thoughts does not make you a bad mother. It makes you someone experiencing a medical condition. And you've taken the bravest step by calling tonight." She asked me questions. Was I planning to hurt my baby? No. Never. Did I want to hurt him? No. God, no. Was I having thoughts I couldn't control? Yes. "That's postpartum depression," she said. "It's common, it's treatable. And Sheila, you're already doing everything right by recognizing it and asking for help." Then she asked one more question. "Is there anyone in your life who might use this against you?" I looked at Nathan. We both knew the answer. The next morning, Monday, October 27th, I met with Dr. Helen Bradford. She's a psychiatrist who specializes in perinatal mental health. The evaluation lasted 90 minutes. She was kind, thorough. She didn't make me feel broken. "Sheila, you're doing everything right," she said at the end. "Voluntary admission isn't a sign of failure, it's a sign of strength. We'll get you stable, and you'll go home to your son." I signed the voluntary admission form at 2:15 p.m. My hands were shaking. But for the first time in 6 weeks, I felt like I was protecting Isaac instead of failing him. Nathan arranged for his brother Thomas to watch Isaac. Not my mother. We didn't tell her the truth. We said I had severe flu and needed to stay at the hospital to avoid exposing the baby. It was a lie. But we knew she would weaponize the truth. She called Nathan 15 times the first day. She showed up at our house twice. She didn't believe us. But HIPAA privacy laws meant the hospital couldn't confirm anything. Even when she called the main line 6 times, they couldn't tell her where I was or why. I spent 6 days in the psychiatric unit. 5th floor, room 512. Medication adjustment. They started me on sertraline. Therapy sessions twice a day. Group support with 7 other mothers going through the same thing. Sleep restoration. Actual rest. Dr. Bradford visited every morning. "You're making excellent progress," she said on day 3. "Zero danger to your baby. You're going to be fine." Nathan came during visiting hours, 4 to 6 p.m. every day. He brought photos of Isaac, videos. "He smiled today," Nathan said on day 4, showing me his phone. "His first real smile. I took a video for you. He's waiting for his mom to come home." I was discharged on Friday, November 1st at 3:30 p.m. I walked into our house and saw Isaac in Thomas's arms. He'd gained 8 ounces. Thomas had taken wonderful care of him. I held my son and cried, not from sadness, from hope. From, "Mommy's home, sweet boy," I whispered. "Mommy's better now. I'm going to take care of you the way you deserve." That evening, my mother texted, "I'm so glad you're feeling better. I'd like to come see Isaac tomorrow. We need to talk." She came over Sunday morning, November 3rd, 11:45 a.m. She walked in and went straight for Isaac, but I was holding him. She turned to me instead. "Sheila, I know you weren't sick with the flu," she said. Her voice was calm, controlled, dangerous. "I called the hospital. They wouldn't tell me anything. What are you hiding?" "Viral infection," I said. "The doctors cleared me." "Don't lie to me." She stepped closer. "I've been a healthcare professional for 30 years. I know when someone's hiding something." Nathan appeared in the doorway. "Carolyn, Sheila's medical information is private. You need to respect that." She stared at him, then at me. Then she picked up her purse. "I will find out," she said quietly. "And when I do, I'll do what's right for Isaac." She left at 12:03 p.m., 18 minutes. But it felt like hours. And that's when everything changed. Over the next 3 weeks, I got better. Medication working, therapy helping. I was sleeping 6, 7 hours a night. I'd regained the weight I'd lost. The intrusive thoughts were down 90%. I was bonding with Isaac in a way I hadn't been able to before. Dr. Bradford was thrilled. "Sheila, I want you to understand something," she said in our 6th outpatient session. "You sought help at the first sign of danger. That makes you one of the most responsible mothers I've ever treated." She wrote it down. A formal note, a medical opinion. I didn't know yet how important that would become. But Nathan knew. Because Nathan saw what I couldn't see yet. My mother wasn't going to let this go. On Wednesday, November 20th, Nathan asked me to meet with someone. Jennifer Walsh, a family law attorney, a colleague of his. We sat in her office in downtown Charlotte, 90 minutes. She listened to everything, the pregnancy interference, the documentation, the confrontation. "If she files anything, CPS report, custody petition, you need to be ahead of it," Jennifer said. "Get your psychiatrist to write a comprehensive letter. Get your timeline documented. This is preventive armor." Her retainer was $2,500. Nathan paid it without hesitation. "Your mother-in-law has professional credibility as a former CPS supervisor," Jennifer said as we were leaving. "If she makes allegations, people will listen. You need to be ready." I didn't want to believe it would go that far, but it did. My mother started talking, quietly at first. Coffee hour at St. Augustine's after the 10 a.m. Mass. November 10th, November 17th, November 24th. Jessica heard it and texted me. "Your mom was at coffee hour again. She told Margaret Davis that you've been struggling and she's been helping with Isaac more than expected. Just FYI." I went to church on November 24th anyway. Thanksgiving Sunday. I wanted to show my face, prove I was fine. 3 women looked at me with too much sympathy when I walked in. The kind of sympathy you give someone fragile, someone damaged. My mother was working. Then came December 8th, Monday, 2 p.m. There was a knock on our door. A man in a gray suit. Badge. "Mrs. Smith, I'm Michael Torres, investigator with Child Protective Services. We received a report of concern regarding your child's safety. I need to ask some questions and observe the home environment." My heart stopped. "Of course," Nathan said, stepping forward. He was calm. He'd been expecting this. Mr. Torres spent 65 minutes in our house. He observed Isaac, healthy, well cared for, happy. He interviewed us. He walked through every room. And then Nathan handed him a letter, 5 pages. Dr. Helen Bradford's comprehensive summary, diagnosis, treatment, voluntary admission, successful outcomes, medical clearance, professional opinion, 0 risk to child. Mr. Torres read it in silence. Then he looked up. "This is very thorough," he said. The case was closed on December 18th. "Unfounded," the report said. "Child is safe, well cared for, and thriving." Mother is receiving appropriate treatment with excellent compliance. No concerns. But my mother told people CPS had investigated. She left out the part where I'd been cleared. By Christmas, the rumors were everywhere. I heard them, overheard conversations in the church parking lot, whispers when I walked by. I heard CPS was at their house. Carolyn must be so worried, that poor baby. Christmas Mass, December 25th. I sat holding Isaac, trying to focus on the liturgy. A woman I barely knew came up to me after, squeezed my hand. "You're so brave for being here," she said, her eyes full of pity. "I'm praying for your healing." I wanted to scream, but I smiled. I thanked her. I walked out with my head up. My mother had turned my responsible choice to seek help into evidence of instability. She'd weaponized my vulnerability, and she was winning. Or so she thought. Because while she was building her narrative in public, Nathan was building something else in private. Early January 2026, my mother tried one more legal move. She consulted an attorney about emergency custody. Douglas Reed, Tuesday, January 7th, $300 consultation. I know this because we subpoenaed the records later. The attorney told her what Jennifer had told us. "Mrs. Preston, voluntary psychiatric treatment is not grounds for custody removal. Your daughter did exactly what she should have done." "But she was hospitalized," my mother insisted, according to the notes. "That proves instability." "No," the attorney said. "It proves responsibility." He refused the case, so my mother shifted tactics. If the law wouldn't help her, she'd use something else. Social pressure, moral authority, public shame. On Thursday, January 16th, she went to Father Michael, our priest. She told him she was gravely concerned about Isaac's safety, that I hadn't been honest about my mental health, that as a former child welfare professional, she had a duty to speak up. Father Michael called me that evening, 7:15 p.m. 23 minutes on the phone. "Sheila, your mother came to see me yesterday. She's expressing concerns about your well-being. I want to offer support if you need to talk." I politely declined. I told him I was fine. I was in treatment. I was doing well. But I knew what was happening. The baptism was scheduled for February 8th, 6 weeks away, and my mother was setting the stage. She was going to use Isaac's baptism, a sacred ceremony, in front of our entire community, to publicly destroy me. And she thought I wouldn't see it coming. But Nathan saw it. And while I was focused on surviving each day, on being a good mother to Isaac, on attending therapy, and taking my medication and proving to myself that I was okay, Nathan was going to war. He just did it quietly. Friday, January 17th. Nathan met with Jennifer Walsh again. "She's weaponizing her professional background," he said. "That's an ethics violation. We're going to file a formal complaint." "You'll need evidence," Jennifer said. "Harm, abuse of professional knowledge, pattern of behavior." "I already started," Nathan said. He'd asked Jessica Palmer to help. Jessica, who'd been warning me about the gossip since May. Jessica, who was furious at what my mother was doing. Jessica, who was positioned perfectly to hear everything my mother said. "Will you record her?" Nathan asked. "Just at coffee hour, when she talks about Sheila." Jessica agreed. North Carolina is a one-party consent state. As long as Jessica was part of the conversation, recording was legal. Over 2 weeks, Jessica captured 3 conversations, 43 minutes total. My mother's voice, clear and damning. "Between you and me, I don't think Sheila should be alone with that baby. She was in a psychiatric ward. As someone who worked in child protection, I know the warning signs." Nathan had Dr. Bradford write an affidavit, 8 pages, signed, notarized, comprehensive, diagnosis, treatment timeline, compliance, outcomes, risk assessment. And one line that would later destroy my mother's credibility. In my professional opinion, Ms. Smith's decision to seek voluntary inpatient treatment represents the gold standard of maternal responsibility. He compiled a witness list. 14 people willing to provide statements. Jessica, Thomas, my co-workers. Church members who'd heard the gossip and were horrified. The crisis hotline counselor, Ann Winters. Even Mr. Torres, the CPS investigator who couldn't formally testify but sent a private email. Off the record, your wife did everything right. I wish more parents had her courage. Jennifer and Nathan created a timeline, 36 pages, 63 documented incidents, color-coded, yellow for boundary violations, orange for false statements, red for legal and ethical breaches. Every claim had a date, a witness, a piece of evidence. And on Thursday, February 5th, 3 days before the baptism, they filed a formal ethics complaint with the North Carolina Social Work Certification and Licensure Board. Case number SWB-2026-0163. 126 pages of documentation, audio recordings, medical affidavits, witness statements, timeline, allegations, using professional knowledge to harm a family member, filing false and misleading CPS reports, breaching confidentiality principles, conduct that harms the public perception of the profession. The board would send my mother notice within 5 to 7 business days. She wouldn't know until after the baptism. Let her have her moment, Nathan said. It'll be her last. Friday, February 6th. Jennifer sent a cease and desist letter to my mother via certified mail, demanding she stop making defamatory statements, warning of legal action. Nathan scheduled delivery for Tuesday, February 11th, after the baptism. He wanted her to feel safe, confident, unprepared. Saturday night, February 7th, the night before Isaac's baptism, 9:45 p.m. Nathan and I sat in our living room. He showed me the file. All of it. I hadn't known the extent. I'd known he was working on something, but I hadn't realized how comprehensive, how thorough, how devastating it was. I read Dr. Bradford's affidavit and cried. Not from pain, from validation, from being seen. She built her weapon in public, Nathan said quietly. I built mine in silence. Tomorrow, everyone will see which one is stronger. Sunday morning, February 8th, 2026. I woke at 7 a.m. Isaac was 5 months and 6 days old. The baptism was scheduled for 11:45 a.m. after the 10 o'clock Mass. I dressed him in his christening gown, handmade Irish lace, 60 years old, a family heirloom from Nathan's side. It was beautiful. He looked perfect. I felt like I was preparing for battle. We arrived at St. Augustine's at 10:43 a.m. The parking lot had 18 cars already. Early Mass attendees, some staying for the baptism. Mrs. Eleanor Hunt, the parish coordinator, met us at the door. Your mother is already here, she said. She asked to sit in the front row. Of course she did. 32 guests. Godparents, Thomas and Jessica, my co-workers, Nathan's family, church members. My mother sat in pew 2, left side. She was wearing a navy suit, professional, authoritative. Her hair was perfect. In her purse, I could see the edge of something, a clipboard maybe, notes. She was prepared. At 11:15, Father Michael came out to greet everyone. My mother stood up, walked over to him. They spoke for 90 seconds. I watched Father nod. I didn't know what she'd said, but I could guess. One last setup, one last manipulation, making sure he'd be sympathetic when she made her move. 11:30 a.m. The ceremony began. Father Michael welcomed everyone. Opening prayers, a reading from Ephesians about putting on the new self, a hymn, Amazing Grace. Nathan and I stood at the baptismal font, white marble, installed in 1952. I held Isaac. He was calm, looking around with wide eyes. Father Michael began blessing the water. We ask you, Father, with your Son to send the Holy Spirit upon the water of this font. It was the most sacred moment of the ceremony. The moment before the sacrament. The moment of transformation. And that's when she stood up. 11:37 a.m. My mother rose from her pew, 12 steps to the center aisle, her voice cut through the sanctuary. "Father, I'm sorry, but I need to speak." The entire church went silent. 32 people frozen. Father Michael looked shocked. "Mrs. Preston, this is not appropriate." "I know, Father." Her voice was shaking with what sounded like emotion. Calculated emotion. "But as a grandmother and as someone who spent 30 years protecting children, I cannot stay silent." She walked to the lectern, the ambo, where the readings are proclaimed. Deacon Mark Sullivan started to move toward her, but she was already there. She took the microphone, and then she spoke. For 2 minutes and 10 seconds she spoke. "I love my daughter, but I have to tell the truth for Isaac's sake." Her voice carried to every corner of the church. "Sheila was hospitalized in a psychiatric ward 3 months ago. She's been unstable. I tried to get help through proper channels, but the system protected her instead of this innocent baby." She paused, looked around at the shocked faces. "I'm begging this community. Someone needs to watch out for Isaac. As a former child protection supervisor, I know the signs, and I'm telling you, my daughter is not emotionally stable enough to be alone with this child. I've tried everything. I've reported to authorities, but no one will listen." Another pause. She was building to her crescendo. "So I'm asking you, as witnesses before God, to hold her accountable." Silence. Complete, devastating silence. Isaac started crying in my arms. A woman in the back whispered, "Oh my God." I stood there, holding my son, looking at my mother, and I felt something I'd never felt before. Not shame, not fear, clarity. Because she'd just made a fatal mistake. She'd done exactly what Nathan said she would do. She'd overreached. Publicly, with witnesses, and she'd done it in a church, on sacred ground, during a sacrament. I didn't cry, I didn't shout. I looked straight at her and spoke. My voice was calm, clear, steady. "Are you finished?" I asked. "Because if you are, I'd like to continue my son's baptism." She blinked. She'd expected me to collapse, to break down, to prove her right. But I didn't. Father Michael stepped forward. "Mrs. Preston, you need to leave, now." And then Nathan moved. 6 steps. He positioned himself between my mother and me, between her and Isaac. His voice was low. Only she, and a few people in the front pews, could hear him. He leaned close, and he whispered, "The social work board received our complaint Thursday. Your hearing is scheduled for March 3rd. Dr. Bradford already submitted her affidavit." I watched my mother's face change. Confidence to confusion to shock to terror. It happened in seconds. Her knees buckled. Deacon Mark caught her, helped her sit down in a pew. She tried to speak. Nothing came out. She looked at Nathan, then at me, then at the 32 faces staring at her, and for the first time in my life, I saw my mother afraid. But Nathan wasn't done. He turned to face the congregation, to face Father Michael. His voice wasn't loud, but it was clear. Everyone heard. "Father, I apologize for this disruption, but I think everyone deserves to know the truth before making judgments." Father Michael nodded slowly. Nathan spoke for 90 seconds, calmly, factually, devastatingly. 3 months ago, my wife experienced postpartum depression, a medical condition that affects 1 in 7 mothers. She recognized the symptoms. She voluntarily sought treatment. She was medically cleared by a board-certified psychiatrist. She's been an exemplary patient and an exemplary parent. He paused. Mrs. Preston has spent 3 months weaponizing that responsible choice, filing false CPS reports, spreading defamatory lies in this community. We filed an ethics complaint with the state licensing board on Thursday. She's facing professional misconduct charges. He let that sit for a moment. My wife didn't hide in shame. She sought help, which is exactly what a good mother does. The only person who should be ashamed is standing in front of this altar, lying to a church full of witnesses. Jessica stood up from her pew. I have recordings, she said, her voice clear. 3 weeks of Mrs. Preston's statements. Defamation. I'll testify if needed. Thomas stood. I cared for Isaac during Sheila's treatment. She called every day to check on him. She came home stronger. Carolyn is lying. Mr. Torres was there. I hadn't known he was coming. He stood. I investigated the CPS report. I closed it. There was no merit. The child is safe and loved. My mother tried to speak, but she had no voice left. Father Michael approached her. His voice was firm but pastoral. Mrs. Preston, I think it's best if you leave. We'll discuss this further in private. She stood, shaking. She picked up her purse. 8 people stood and left with her. Her closest allies, people who'd believed her. 24 people stayed. The door closed behind her at 11:52 a.m. Father Michael turned back to the altar. Shall we continue? The ceremony resumed. Father Michael blessed the water. He made the sign of the cross on Isaac's forehead. And then he poured the holy water. Isaac Michael Smith, I baptize you in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. The water touched Isaac's forehead at 12:04 p.m. I cried then, not from shame, from relief, from release, from the overwhelming sense that something sacred had just been reclaimed. Nathan's hand was in mine. Isaac was in my arms. The congregation prayed the Our Father together. The ceremony ended at 12:08 p.m. 15 people came to us afterward, hugs, apologies. I'm so sorry I doubted you. Your mother was very convincing. You're so strong. Mrs. Hunt, the parish coordinator, hugged me tight. I'm sorry, she whispered. I should have questioned her earlier. If you've ever felt your family weaponize your vulnerability, if you've ever been punished for asking for help, leave a comment. Sometimes knowing you're not alone is the only thing that keeps us standing. The week after the baptism moved quickly. Tuesday, February 11th. My mother received the certified letter from Jennifer Walsh, the cease and desist, demanding she stop all defamatory statements, warning of legal action. She also received formal notice from the North Carolina Social Work Board, a letter outlining the ethics complaint, a hearing scheduled for March 3, 2026. She didn't contact us. March 3rd. The hearing lasted 4 hours. Nathan went alone. I stayed home with Isaac. I didn't need to be there. When Nathan came home that evening, he kissed me. Kissed Isaac. It's over, he said. The board voted to suspend my mother's certification pending a full investigation. Given the evidence, the audio recordings, the false CPS report, the documented pattern of harm, Dr. Bradford's affidavit, the witness statements, the recommendation was permanent revocation. My mother would never work in social services again. The church community split. Some people left St. Augustine's with my mother. Most stayed. Father Michael called me privately on February 18th. He came to our house. Sheila, I failed you, he said. I let fear and assumption cloud my judgment. I'm sorry. Your strength through this has been a testament to something I should have seen earlier. I forgive you, I said. But I won't forget. Trust has to be rebuilt. He nodded. I understand. 6 church members formally apologized over the next 2 weeks. I accepted each apology with grace. But I also remembered who had stayed silent, who had participated in the gossip, who had believed my mother without question. Some bridges don't get rebuilt, and that's okay. By May 2026, Isaac was 8 months old, healthy, happy, thriving. I was back at work full-time as a guidance counselor. Therapy was down to once a month. Maintenance, Dr. Bradford called it. Nathan and I were stronger than we'd ever been. My mother moved to South Carolina, living with her sister. We'd had no contact for 85 days. Then a package arrived. No return address. Inside was the navy blue notebook, the one she'd used to document my failures. All 32 pages had been torn out. Only the cover remained. I threw it away. I didn't need it anymore. The evidence had served its purpose. The truth had been told. Justice had been served. But more than that, I didn't need to prove anything to her anymore. In June, Isaac said his first word. "Mama," I cried. Happy tears this time. I started sharing my story anonymously in a postpartum support group Dr. Bradford recommended. 3 other mothers sought treatment because they heard someone had survived it, had thrived after it. That felt like the real victory. Sunday, June 7th, 2026, morning mass at St. Augustine's. Nathan, Isaac, and me. We walked in together, past the baptismal font, past the pew where my mother used to sit. Isaac was 9 months and 5 days old. He laughed when the choir sang. He reached up and touched my face during the homily. And I realized something. I used to think being a good mother meant never struggling, never needing help, never showing weakness. Now I know the truth. Being a good mother means struggling honestly. It means asking for help when you need it. It means fighting for your child, even when the enemy is someone you love, even when the battlefield is a church, even when the cost is a relationship you thought was permanent. The danger was never that I asked for help. The danger was that my mother mistook control for care. She mistook her need to be needed for love. She mistook my vulnerability for weakness. She was wrong about all of it. Isaac will grow up knowing his mother sought help when she needed it. He'll grow up knowing that mental health treatment isn't shameful, it's responsible. He'll grow up knowing that the people who truly love you don't weaponize your darkest moments. They hold your hand through them. That Sunday, when we walked out of St. Augustine's into the June sunlight, Isaac reached up and touched my face. His little hand, warm and soft. And I knew. This is what winning looks like. Not perfection, not control, not the approval of people who were never going to see me clearly anyway. Just this. My son, my husband, my peace, my truth. If this story meant something to you, if it reminded you that seeking help is strength, not weakness, subscribe. Because the truth is always stronger than lies. It just sometimes takes longer to be heard.